Yo, what's up mga katropa? Magandang araw sa ating lahat. Ayan, panibagong araw at panibagong video na naman ho ang ating pag-uusapan ngayon. So mga katropa, bago ho tayo mag-proceed doon sa ating topic, gusto ko lang magbigay sa inyo ng paalala dahil may parating po na bagyo dito sa Philippine area. Super typhoon daw ito. So mag-ingat ho tayo sa ating mga araw-araw na ating ginagawa. Lagi nating idalangin sa Panginoon naway na huwag tumama dito sa ating sangkalupaan at iligtas tayo sa lahat ng mga kapahamakan. So mga katropa, gusto ko pong buksan o bigyan pansin ang topic na ito, yung palitan ng kuro-kuro, ika nga yung conversation ng ating mga butihing senador, sina Senador Tolentino, Senador Pimentel, kasama si Senador Bato de la Rosa. So mga kasaludo, bago tayo pumunta doon at magbigay ng ating point of view, at kayo na rin po mga katropa, magbigay kayo ng inyong assessment at opinion sa bagay na ito. So bago tayo magsimula, intro muna tayo. So ayan mga katropa, welcome back to my YouTube channel again. Siya nga pala, gusto po muna kayong anyayahan na huwag yung kalimutan i-follow yung page na ito at paki-subscribe din po yung ating YouTube channel, yung GR Bato Official. Paki-subscribe, like and share ng video para for more info to everyone sa mga video na ating gagawin. So mga katropa, gusto kong bigyan pong pansin yung usapin sa ating national security. Ako bilang isang ex-army, mas ibinibigay ko ang aking pagsang-ayon doon sa opinion ni Senator Tolentino dahil ang usapan dito ay regarding sa ating national security. Siguro bago tayo magbigay ng ating opinion, yung ating kuro-kuro, yung ating point of view, panoorin natin pare-parehas yung video clip.
Alam ko medyo komplikado po ito. Baka hindi talaga sabihin.
So that makes the matter moot and academic.
No, I will answer.
Yes, I will now propound questions. We have free will. Why do we put pressure on him to explain?
No, I'm not imputing any bad faith, as I mentioned. I'm not putting pressure. We are not requiring him to explain.
So, if this is our concern, then nothing prevents us from filing an amendatory bill.
Lahat ng laman ng kanyang privilege speech, Mr. President, I am fully supportive of it. Ang purpose naman niya doon na kailangan i-declare natin yung ating mga relatives na nasa terrorist organizations, hindi para gipitin yung tao na nagdi-declare.
We are being transparent. Bakit hindi po natin isama yung makakaapekto sa national security?
What is going to be the value of such a declaration, Mr. President?
Baka merong mangyari na unknowingly ito'y maa-access ng kanyang kapatid na nasa kabila at magagamit ito against us.
It would prove his mettle of patriotism. His full disclosure and transparency would show that he is not really his brother's keeper.
I have a different point of view, Mr. President.
Bakit hindi natin ma-require, even voluntarily, i-disclose kung meron tayong kamag-anak na napunta doon sa isang bahagi na gustong pabagsakin ang ating lipunan na ating pinaglilingkuran. Mr. President, wala po ako nakikitang masama na magsabi ng totoo kung may kamag-anak kang miyembro ng isang grupo na sisira sa lipunan. I've been trying to convert the fleeting components of my wordless thoughts, perhaps with a tinge of anger, into patterns of conventional speech. Nagagalit po ako minsan, Mr. President. Bakit po? Noong nakaraang Biyernes, Sabado, ang laman po ng ating mga balita, halos wala na po akong sinusundang basahin dito dahil nasa dibdib ko po ito, ay tungkol po sa napakaraming pinaslang na miyembro ng Sandatahang Lakas ng Pilipinas sa Iloilo, kasama po ang ating ilang kapulisan. At ang nakakalungkot po dito, Mr. President, ang kapatid ng mastermind, Mr. President, ay miyembro ng isang pinuno ng isang mataas na ahensya ng pamahalaan. I am referring to the incumbent CHED Commissioner who is also a good friend of mine. I won't mention the name. Of course, you know the name of Popoy de Vera. Hindi ko na po babanggitin din, Mr. President, kung sino yung kapatid. Subalit ang naging tugon, Mr. President, the immediate response coming from Chairman de Vera is that I have been, quote-unquote, in my own reformulation of his words, I have been estranged with my sister for the last 25 years. I never knew that she was a high-ranking member of the New People's Army in the underground, and I was never informed that she was a mastermind in the killings of some of our soldiers. The reason why, Mr. President, I'm saying this is that perhaps in other branches of government, in the hierarchy, within the hierarchy, in our bureaucracy, perhaps in the USEC, ASEC, directorial levels, there are still some of those in positions of power with siblings, with relatives who are members of terrorist organization. It may not be the New People's Army or the Communist Party of the Philippines. It may be even your ordinary kidnap for ransom gangs, or it may be the Abu Sayyaf or other terrorist organizations. Kaya ko po ito binabanggit, Mr. President, is that all of us,
So ayan mga katropa, pakinggan yung bahagi na pero tapusin natin yung video pakinggan para at least buo yung ating magiging assessment o perspective, conclusion sa video na ito. Dahil magkakabaiti yung ating puting senador, si Senator Tolentino, no? Natin pinsahan ng ating bayan mula doon sa mga teroristang grupo na gusto ng protektahan. Ang purpose ni Senator Tolentino yung ating national security, no? Ang ating bansa mula doon sa mga teroristang grupo na ang kanilang pakay o intention ay papagsakin ang ating gobyerno. So,
all of the government officials, even barangay captains, even our ordinary clerks, even a minor bureaucrat, every year, pursuant to existing laws, if I can remember it correctly, it's Republic Act 7163, every year we file a SALN, Statement of Assets and Liabilities. Ilalagay po natin doon, Mr. President, sino ba ang kapatid mong nasa pamahalaan? Hindi naman natin alam na minanalo kang pinsan na nandun sa malayong probinsya within the 4th degree of consanguinity. Ilalagay po natin doon, i-declare natin. Bakit po? Sangayon po sa ating saligang batas, nakalagay po doon, we have to declare relatives working in the government for purposes of transparency. And I think, Mr. President, there was even a Supreme Court case. There was even a Supreme Court Chief Justice that was who was booted out of office because of inconsistencies within the SALN. I'm positing this legal notion, Mr. President, to perhaps trigger the imagination of the Civil Service Commission or even this chamber, Mr. President.
okay, ayan mga katropa, napakinggan nyo yung sinabi ni Senator Tolentino, no? Na yearly ay sa ating sariling batas mula sa barangay officials pataas ay nagsasabit tayo ng salin. So dapat sabi niya nakaindigin doon yung ating mga kamag-anak ganda ng kanyang punto para at least malupit natin kung sino ang magiging kumbaga, malulukit natin kung sino ang may problema sa mga ginawang hindi karapat-dapat o laban sa ating gobyerno.
Is it now the right time that we also require when one enters the government through an appointment or an elective position to perhaps declare? Do you have a relative within the fourth degree of consanguinity who is a member of a terrorist organization? Who is a member, who is an affiliate of an organization that seeks to overthrow the Republic of the Philippines? Mr. President, a lot of us have applied for visas coming from several countries. If you apply for an Australian visa, you will be asked, are you a member of a paramilitary group that seeks to overthrow your government or any government overseas? Of course, your answer will be no. If you apply for a US visa, Mr. President, you will be required to answer, are you a member or affiliated with a group inclined to overthrow your government? Or are you affiliated with a terror group? Bakit po sa atin? Walang ganyan. Sa atin po, ang nire-require lang natin, SALN. Meron ka bang kamag-anak na nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno? Kahit po mababang pwesto, kahit barangay official, di-declare po natin. Din po yun nasa batas. Bakit po hinahayaan natin? And I am not ascribing any fault on the part of Mr. Popoy de Vera. Kapatid lang po niya yun. Perhaps he is right. Baka nga po hindi niya alam kung ano ang ginagawa ng kanyang kapatid who is now detained in the Iloilo Provincial Jail. Baka wala talaga siyang alam. We have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps he is correct. She is presumed innocent. Subalit kaya ko po sinasabi to, perhaps in other branches of government, there might be some people connected to incumbent officers who might have access to confidential information that might endanger national security. I might be right, Mr. President, because there are several sensitive positions in government which perhaps our intelligence community can no longer be able to monitor, Mr. President. I'm saying this, Mr. President, not because I am imputing bad faith on the part of a fellow government servant. I am saying this, Mr. President, is because it is now the right time to change some of our laws, some of our rules. While we admit that we committed several mistakes when we passed that anti-terror bill, whose provisions were declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court itself, perhaps the right to preserve, to protect our society is primordial. And let me quote Article 2, Section 5 of our Constitution. The maintenance of peace and order, the protection of life, liberty, property, and the promotion of the general welfare are essential for the enjoyment by all the people of the blessings of democracy. Again, I reiterate, yesterday we commemorated National Heroes Day. And every Monday, in all government offices, during flag raising ceremonies, including our own, including the Senate, all employees would raise their right hands. Ako ay nanunumpa na magiging tapat sa watawat ng Pilipinas, etc., etc. And when we assume office, after being elected or after being appointed, we also subscribe to the same oath. Ako si nanahalal o nahirang sa katungkulan bilang ay taimtim na nanunumpa. Natuto pa rin ko ng buong husay at katapatan sa abot ng aking kakayahan at babanggitin po doon ang saligang batas ng Pilipinas at kasama na rin po yung binanggit ko na dapat protektahan ang life, liberty, and property. Mr. President, I pose this question not because I am against Popoy de Vera. I pose this question because we have to have a semblance of a strong government. I pose this question, Mr. President, not just because we commemorated yesterday the National Heroes Day. I pose this question that perhaps creeping within the bureaucracy are anti-heroes or unheroes or non-heroes that might endanger the very fabric of our democratic way of life. Maraming salamat, Mr. President. I said a while ago that I wish not to be interpolated, but because I took the time of Senator Robin Hood Padilla, but now I see the hands of my Blue Ribbon colleagues who failed to offer me lunch. Mr. President, with your permission, I'll take one question each from one of them before I yield the floor to
Yes,
Senator Padilla.
we'd like to appeal to our distinguished colleague. It is a very interesting topic, very serious topic, and I think it needs further clarification. If he may allow our minority floor leader to ask a question.
At any rate, Mr. President, we always preface our interpellation with if the good gentleman would yield for some questions. He can answer no. So, would the good gentleman yield for some clarificatory questions on the subject matter of his privilege speech?
Willingly, Mr. President,
okay,
as long as Senator Padilla will not take it against this representation because I took his time. I promised him I'll just use his time of 3 minutes.
So that makes the matter moot and academic. So
No, I will answer.
Yes, I will now propound questions. Mr. President, hindi ko maalala yung family name pero nangyari na ito before na meron po tayong naging general sa Armed Forces of the Philippines na may lalaki pa to, na may brother na naging high-ranking commander din po ng New People's Army. Nangyari pa yan. Z-U-M-E-L. Zumel is the family name. Is the gentleman aware of this of this circumstance?
I am not so familiar,
Yes,
but
meron.
the general's name sounds familiar.
Yes.
Coming from the armed forces.
Meron pong ganon. So, napapakita lang po na we have free will I mean, the brother...
Kaya mga kasalubong sa video ito ay mapapanood ang pagsingit Senator Pimentel. Bibigay siya ng halimbawa doon sa dating general siya ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. At the same time, yung kanyang kapatid ay mataas ang kanyang rango sa kaliwang grupo. So yun ang binibigay niyong halimbawa na merong free will. Pero sabi nga ni Senator Mig Subiri, blood is thicker than water. Paligtan mo man ang mundo, kapatid mo pa rin. Mayroon ka pa rin sa puso mo na concern na ayaw mo mapahamak ang iyong kapatid o ayaw mapatay ng ating pamahalaan. So, panoorin pa natin.
Is that general was not his brother's keeper. Decision ng brother niya should not and did not affect his military career. Umangat siya hanggang sa taas. So, Popoy de Vera is not his sister's keeper. Why do we put pressure on him to explain the actions, past decisions of his sister, Mr. President?
No, I'm not imputing any bad faith, as I mentioned. I'm not putting pressure. We're not requiring him to explain. We're not asking for any clarification. He already said his piece that he has been estranged with his sister for the last 25 years. What I'm saying is this, Mr. President, in the general scheme of things, if we are to pursue the SALN analogy to its fullest extent possible, we are being transparent with our siblings, with our relatives, within the fourth degree of sanguinity. Bakit hindi po natin isama yung makakaapekto sa national security? Kung lahat po ng mga nandito sa Senadong empleyado natin, kung meron silang kapatid na nagtatrabaho sa GSIS, dinideclare nila. Bakit hindi natin ma-require, even voluntarily, i-disclose kung meron tayong kamag-anak na napunta doon sa isang bahagi na gustong pabagsakin ang ating lipunan na ating pinaglilingkuran.
Dito, nire-raise ni Senator Tolentino kung doon sa salin ay naka-declare yung ating mga kamag-anak na nasa gobyerno dapat isama doon sa salin, bakit hindi daw natin gawin na ilagay din natin yung mga kamag-anak natin na nasa kabilang grupo for the purpose of transparency. Yun ang sinasabi ni Senator Tolentino na maganda rin yun para at least yung salin maging guide yun para magiging basyuan pagdating sa legal action pertaining doon sa empleyado na yon at doon din sa individual na sumapi doon sa kabilang grupo.
Well, Mr. President, ang matter of SALN is governed by law. Law yan eh. Ang laman ng SALN determined by law. Actually, yung SALN form natin does
Yes.
not accurately reflect the requirements of the law. So, if this is our concern, then nothing prevents us from filing an amendatory bill to make that a part of the SALN law. But ang worry ko nga ganito, if this had been required of that member of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, then would that have affected his career and never siya naging general? Because of decisions made by a brother and when he is not his brother's keeper. So what is going to be the value of such a declaration, Mr. President?
Mr. President, perhaps that will not affect General Sumel's career path, but it would prove his mettle of patriotism. His full disclosure and transparency would show that he is not really his brother's keeper. His full disclosure of the circumstances surrounding his brother would probably put his other colleagues in having the right perspective towards General Zomel. I'm saying this, Mr. President, is because we have to have a disclosure that would perhaps remove in harm's way, possibly, other people who yesterday we considered also as national heroes. Bakit po, Mr. President, alam ko medyo komplikado po ito, baka hindi talaga sabihin, hindi po ba tama nung kagaya nyo po, Mr. President, kayo po ay nag-ibang bansa, pag-file nyo nga pag-apply nyo ng inyong visa, dinideclare nyo rin na wala akong kamag-anak na member ng ibang terrorist group. Australia at USA ang nabanggit ko kanina, perhaps other countries would likewise require that. I don't know if the Department of Foreign Affairs is likewise requiring that for those entering the Philippines. Di ba ho? So, Mr. President, wala po ako nakikitang masama na magsabi ng totoo kung may kamag-anak kang miyembro ng isang grupo na sisira sa lipunan.
Okay, Mr. President, I know the gentleman is in a hurry, but the merit and validity of the idea or the proposal will be tested when the bill is filed, amending the SALN law, and the corresponding committee report is reported out in the plenary.
Or Mr. President, even perhaps the Civil Service Commission can act motu proprio in the exercise of their constitutional functions, because the job of the civil service just refers to merit and fitness. Merit and fitness. And perhaps merit would likewise include that notion of honesty and transparency in disclosing circumstances concerning your siblings' affiliation with a terrorist organization, Mr. President.
I have a different point of view, Mr. President, because as I have stated earlier, SALN is governed by law, a very specific law, pati yung contents nun is determined by law. So, if we want additional content on our SALN, we amend the law. That is my...
Dito, sang-ayon naman ang ating buting senador Bato de la Rosa doon sa pahayag ni Senator Tolentino, no? With regard doon sa protection sa ating national security, na dapat talaga i-declare, na dapat daw i-declare, isama doon sa salin yung declaration, yung ating mga kamag-anak o mga kamag-anak na kasama doon sa leftist group na ang kanilang purpose ay pabagsakin ang ating gobyerno. So, pakinggan natin.
my position.
This is not an interpellation. This is just a plain manifestation that this humble representation would like to be associated in all the issues being raised by the good gentleman from Cavite and Tagaytay City. Lahat ng laman ng kanyang privilege speech, Mr. President, I am fully supportive of it. Because alam naman natin na naging issue yan ngayon, yung security. Ang purpose naman niya doon na kailangang i-declare natin yung ating mga relatives na nasa terrorist organizations, hindi para gipitin yung tao na nagdi-declare, kundi for the security organizations to classify that this person ay merong kapatid or anak na nasa terrorist organization, para alam nila how i-treat ito, lalong-lalo na sa atin sa gobyerno. Like for example, cabinet member, supposed to be that cabinet member is given the highest level of security clearance because secretary siya. But then again, pag malaman ng security community na may kapatid pala ito na nasa kabila, then they know how to treat. Kailangan siguro pwedeng i-limit natin yung impormasyon na ibigay natin dito, lalong-lalo na yung mga top secrets, dahil nga baka merong mangyari na unknowingly ito'y ma-access ng kanyang kapatid na nasa kabila at magagamit ito against us.
So ayan mga katropa, napakinggan nyo yung video clip, yung kanilang talakayan, no, ng bawat senador, no, regarding doon sa declaration. Dapat for me, no, may punto rin si Senador Tolentino na i-declare talaga yung mga consanguinity, no, na i-declare natin sa ating mga dokumento. Nagbigay siya ng halimbawa sa salin na dinideclare naman yung mga beneficiaries at mga iba pang bagay, no, na dapat naka-indicate yung ating mga relatives. Dapat ganun din, no, ilagay natin sa ating mga consanguinity, no, lalo na doon sa mga politiko, kung ikaw ay may mga kapatid na halimbawa leftist group, para at least yung government aware doon sa particular na tao na yon, lalo na kung ang isang government official ay mataas ang kanyang katungkulan at may kapatid ito na bahagi naman ng ibang grupo na laban sa ating gobyerno. At least ang gobyerno magkaroon ng awareness, no, at maprotektahan yung ating national security at